I got caught in the rain on my walk, but I wanted to reply to this comment. I absolutely agree that it's really important to write protective documentation for ourselves as clinicians and for our clients. That being said, I want to clarify that when I'm talking about protecting client personal information, I am talking about identifying information that is not clinically relevant to their treatment from an insurance compliance standpoint. This is where we kind of start to get into the difference between protective notes and vague notes, which are not what I'm trying to get people to do. So for example, let's say I have a client that comes in and reports SI. I'm not going to be vague about that risk assessment because it is clinically appropriate for me to include the details of that risk assessment so that that client is protected and so that I'm protected. So even though there is personal information that may not be something the client would love everybody to know, it's important and clinically relevant for me to include those details for their protection and for my protection. On the other hand, in this political climate, I am very cautious about documenting things like immigration status, if someone is transgender, if somebody is pregnant or has had an abortion. Those are not things that the insurance company needs to know to be able to verify that services are relevant to the client and that I am providing evidence-based treatment. But they could cause immense harm to the client if they were subpoenaed or if someone else had access to those notes. On a less extreme level, insurance companies and other people who might have access to these notes don't need to know the details of every little conflict that a client gets into with a friend or a partner. They don't need to know the deepest, darkest things that a client has said when they're venting about their boss. Like, none of those details are clinically relevant, and knowing them doesn't help me do my job any better, so they're not necessary to include in the note. As I've said before, I include a lot of client collaboration when I'm deciding what to include in the note so that the client is able to consent and we're able to create notes that are informed by their goals. But if a client shares something that makes me potentially liable, as respectfully and professionally as possible, I am going to document that to protect them and myself. Hope this helps.